BC NDP leader David Eby and Conservative leader John Rustad spent their first week on the campaign trail making some big promises to voters and trading jabs at each other.
We've had enough, quite frankly, of David Eby and these drugs and handing out free crack pipes. I mean, just creating these drug dens in our community. We've had enough of that nonsense. We're going to end decriminalization. We're going to end safe supply.
This is one of the most consequential elections in our province's history. We've heard John Rustad talk about some really far-out conspiracies this week, eating bugs, and that the COVID pandemic didn't actually happen. All kinds of bizarre things.
Polling from the first week shows voters view Eby more favorably than Rustad. The Angus Reid Institute found that 45% of British Columbians had a favorable view of Eby, while Rustad was viewed favorably by 33% of respondents. For more on the BC election, let's bring in some reporters who have been covering this. Justine Hunter is the BC politics reporter with the Globe and Mail, and Shannon Waters is the BC politics and environment reporter with the Narwhal. It's good to see you again. Apologies for getting to you late. That Lebanon breaking news delayed us, but we appreciate you being here. Justine, you've been covering the NDP. Eby has better numbers than Rustad, but the party is slightly behind the Conservatives. What's the mood on the NDP campaign right now?
Yeah, I've spent a few days now on the NDP bus, touring around Metro Vancouver and across Vancouver Island. And, you know, we always talk about battlegrounds in elections. Certainly, these are the regions with the most seats in contention in this election. And it's these urban areas that handed the NDP a majority government in 2020. So the NDP are really spending a lot of time trying to shore up what they have. Now, I don't know what their internal polling looks like, but when you look at things like that flip-flop on the carbon tax by Mr. Eby just before the campaign started, I'd say they're really taking nothing for granted in this race. But when you look at the bus, you know, the New Democrats have campaign veterans, a well-oiled machine. The events you'll see David Eby at are carefully controlled partisan crowds. So if you see him on the news, he's likely surrounded by friendly faces. I can't compare what it's like on the Conservative bus because they don't have one. And they're also just not easy to catch up with because they have very few media events. They had one availability today, but you know Mr. Rustad's doing a lot more than that. They just don't want to have pesky reporters around most of the time. It's a stealthy campaign, and Mr. Rustad has also refused to do a number of leadership debates. So there'll be a lot of focus on the one televised debate next week, which will really be the first time where we get to see Mr. Rustad and Mr. Eby really square off.
Well, Shannon, that peekaboo campaign is an interesting tactic that the Conservatives are running there. But you saw the clip, or heard the clip we played. A lot of talk about drugs, drug dens, crack pipes, and this sort of thing, but also vaccines, because this video surfaced of John Rustad saying he regretted getting vaccinated against COVID. How is all of this playing out for the Conservative leader so far?
They've definitely been playing a bit of defense, I would say, on the Conservative campaign this week. That video of Rustad talking about regrets about vaccination has gotten a lot of play in certain circles. You also had, as Eby referenced in that clip, another transcript of Rustad talking about, you know, kids potentially being forced to eat bugs. So some of the comments that I think we knew were likely going to cause some consternation and that the NDP were going to try and capitalize on have come out. So the Conservatives have been asked about some of that. Rustad has also been asked this week about, you know, his sort of limited availability for leaders debates, and basically saying that dates that he was offered for a leaders debate that would have focused on Vancouver Island, an area where the Conservatives are hoping to pick up some seats. He said that the debate timing just didn't make sense for him, and that despite efforts to reschedule, you know, it just didn't happen. So as Justine mentioned, he's going to have this one debate at this point in time with Eby and with Sonia Furstenau. And that is coming up next week. In the meantime, there's been a lot of talk about housing policies this week.
Yeah, so just touch on that, because where I wanted to go next. John Rustad is offering something, Shannon, very similar to what we see in the United States, right, in terms of a tax deductibility for your housing costs. So what's the play there?
Yes, so allowing people to deduct housing costs in the form of a rebate. This would come out of income tax. Not a whole lot of details on how exactly the mechanism would work, but it would be open to both homeowners who have mortgages that they have to pay, as well as today Rustad added that things like strata fees would also be eligible for this rebate. And then renters would be able to use their rental costs as part of it. It's looking like a very pricey program. It would start at about $1,500 in terms of the rebate next year, and then scale all the way up to $3,000 eventually.
Per month, right? $3,000 per month is per year, is it? Or sorry, is the deduction $3,000 a month, or is it how does that work? The cost on the that Rustad is putting on the table. Shannon, is it?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were.
No, I just wanted some precision there because I'm confused on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the rebate that the Conservatives are talking about is up to $3,000 per month of rent or mortgage costs. And that could cost the government up to $3.5 billion per year once it's fully scaled up, according to the Conservative costing. Okay,
Justine, that's a big money promise and a big change. How's all this playing out there, do you think?
Yeah, and I think it's also worth clarifying when you say a $3,000 rebate, it's not that you're going to get $3,000 in your pocket every month. It's that you can claim that much against your income tax.
It's a tax
so
credit
you'll get a
or
much
tax
smaller,
deduction.
Yeah, so you get a much smaller amount in your pocket if you qualify. And the qualification goes up to, I believe, $250,000 a year in annual family income. So this would be a very broad-based one. The NDP are coming out with their own housing policies, trying to keep up. Certainly, we saw sort of dueling press conferences with different ideas of how to approach one of the issues that's certainly going to be driving this election. So the NDP are promising to develop 25,000 homes that will be sold essentially at 60 cents on the dollar to qualified first buyers. And the remaining 40% would be bankrolled by the government in the form of a low-cost loan. Today, David Eby was out at a site where they do build prefabricated homes on Vancouver Island. And we were at a site where they're putting these in a new neighborhood near Comox Valley. They're promising to make changes to boost that manufacturing of prefabricated homes to allow people to get into lower cost housing. So yeah, you've got both, for a voter to decide which party's got the best policies on housing. You're really just I think right now it looks like a choice between one party that believes government should be investing in housing directly and another one that wants to cut red tape and let private sector do its thing.
Okay, I've got 10 seconds, Justine. I apologize for this, but is this still neck and neck? Is that where we are 1 week in, do you think?
I would say the way that the leaders are behaving, yes, it's going to be a tight race because that's how they're fighting it.
Shannon, is that how you see it? I mean, the polling is one thing, but vote efficiency in the Lower Mainland all changes things. How do you view the race right now?
Absolutely neck and neck in terms of the polling percentages we're seeing at this point in time. That kind of works out in the NDP's favor at the moment, like you mentioned when it comes to the vote distribution. So it's going to be a busy couple of weeks for everybody on the campaign trail. Okay, and the big highlight for me was David Eby surviving that wasp attack. There's some great photos of that happening. Justine Hunter with the Globe and Mail, Shannon Waters with the Narwhal. I promise we'll have more time next time we have you on. Thanks so much for being here again this week.